Satisfactory dropped a new 1.1 trailer today, but despite it being only 1 minute long, it is absolutely packed with a ton of little hints about what's to come, and oh boy, there's a lot of really cool and exciting stuff. So let's dive into it frame by frame and see if we can point out everything new that's coming in 1.1, but if I missed anything, please be sure to let me know in the comments. So this first opening shot is pretty tame, but we can immediately see some new sort of triangular support pillars being used on the train track here. We already know that there's going to be hypertube splitters, but there's something on this hypertube that looks like it could be a booster. And I say that because it could be a hypertube splitter, but so far the ones that we've seen wouldn't allow for this straight hypertube here. It looks a lot like a pipeline pump, which is kind of why I was thinking that it's probably a booster. The only other thing here is that we can see a drone flying around, which maybe is implying that there's improved drone pathing, although maybe it's just a good route for this particular shot, kind of hard to tell. This next shot shows a pretty cool train intersection, which maybe implies some improved train building, but it's kind of hard to tell. But the cool part here is, of course, the hypertube splitters that we can now see in more detail. They're going to allow us to change direction while inside a hypertube. It also appears that there are signals on the left-hand side of the track. Currently, I believe you can only place them on the right side. So now they're going to function on either side, it looks like. The next shot is the exact same scene, but zoomed in and with a different angle, and here we can see the hypertube splitters up a little closer. We can also see that those pillars in the center were not just painted pillars or beams, but are a new kind of pillar or beam. We get this cool industrial-looking metal riveted pillar. It also seems like there's a new thin concrete pillar covering up the stand on this hypertube. I'm pretty sure that's what it is and that it's new, but I could be wrong on that. I'm also a little suspicious of this fluids train here. I wonder if that's implying something new or if that's just for looks. Maybe they finally buffed fluid train cars. Now we see this awesome suspension bridge. Many people have created their own suspension bridges in Satisfactory with pipes or wires, but now we get giant cables. These appear to be a new kind of beam since they're diagonal and use beam connectors. I'm also pretty sure those rectangular beam connectors are new. I could be wrong on that. But we also see that there's two different sizes of cable here, as the vertical ones are a bit thinner. The textured ridged orange beam here at the bottom also appears to be a new type of beam. Pretty cool. Also, I am suspicious of this building by the miner in the background, but I think more than likely it's just several buildings smudged together thanks to the blur in the video. But I don't know. It could be something. Next up is something that I have personally been asking for basically since day one, which is a garage door for the gate walls that opens vertically. The current horizontal gates are cool, but a functioning garage door is even better. And inside that garage door are a ton of surprises. The most obvious is these new storage racks. Obviously the storage racks are pretty fun, but they're likely going to be mostly cosmetic and not actually have a good gameplay function. Either way, they make a great decoration, which is something we're severely lacking in this game. We can also see a couple teasers for other things that are going to be shown in more detail in the following clips, so hold your horses there. I'm going to wait until we can see them a little bit clearer. But in the meantime, we see some fun new emotes and poses for the Pioneer, always enjoyable, and we can also see these new vent decorations here on the walls. The next shot is of this nuclear factory, and that's to show off the new enhanced photo mode. They show off a few new looks like comic book and tilt shift. This is a nice little touch and should help make your Reddit screenshots even better. And presumably you'll also be able to fly the camera around independent of the Pioneer. This is going to be huge for content creators as well, since we won't have to spend time positioning our character just right, or having to deal with the hands that show up in fly mode. Hopefully we'll even be able to animate the camera and move with it. That would be really cool. I'm also pretty sure that this clip is showing off straight build mode for pipes, but it's kind of hard to tell. Obviously you can sort of fake straight build mode, but I think that's why they're focusing on the pipe so much in this shot. This next aerial shot doesn't appear to show too much new stuff, but we can infer a few things from it that are possibly teasers. First of all, we can see one new decorative item. Again, that is the vent, this time being shown on the ceiling. You may also notice that this building is curved and there is an extensive curved train tower in the background. This doesn't overtly show that there's a new curved build mode, but I think it heavily implies that building curves is going to be a lot easier now, whether it's with platforms or train tracks or both. Of all the exciting shots in this trailer, this one might be the most exciting for actual factories. First of all, look at that. Item counters on the belt. You can place this scanner on a belt and it will tell you how many parts per minute are passing through it. This is huge, people have been asking for it forever. It also might hint at precise splitters, which I've been pretty against, but people seem to want. So we'll see. Another thing that's been asked for a very long time is vertical splitters. Thus far, we've made do with lifts, but it looks like using the vertical inputs and outputs is going to be possible finally. However, it also appears that doing so might close off one of the sides, or maybe there'll be a splitter and merger Mark II that has all the sides open. It's a little hard to tell from this shot. I'm also curious if this is going to be a different type of merger and splitter, or if it's just going to be a modified version of the original one that is going to close off sides depending on which inputs you use. It's also impossible to tell in this shot, as far as I can tell, but I know a lot of people have been asking for priority mergers, and I'm wondering if this splitter and merger update here is also going to include that. Essentially, smart mergers in addition to smart splitters. But I think we're going to have to wait until another update to know for sure. This shot of the balcony is absolutely packed with stuff. Starting from left to right, we can see a new thin rounded pillar, which also includes a half circle version that can be mounted onto the ceiling. It's hard to tell if there's a special piece just to conjoin the two types, or if the clipping is just really good. I'm gonna guess it's just good clipping. But there's also a cube-shaped base made from concrete, as well as some painted elements that matches the road signs a bit. And then moving over, we can see the return of the giant cable beam looking pretty good here. And in the background is something very cool that we'll see again in another clip, and that is the elevator shaft. It's unclear just from this whether the elevator shaft here is just a 1x1 tower made from a new window design, or if the elevator shaft is a specific buildable, kind of like a hypertube. But we can see it has both windows and doors for the exits. Somehow an elevator, though, is not the most exciting part of this shot. No, that belongs to what appears to be placeable wall holes for conveyor belts. That series of belt lifts appears to be made of 5 lifts, all next to each other, yet they all have wall holes and they all appear to be one giant buildable, or at least 5 different buildables that sort of combine and clip nicely together. The next shot zooms out and down a bit of this same factory, showing the elevator shaft at its bottom. Again, we can see the vents, this time on foundations as well, so now we know they can be placed on basically any surface. This clip also shows off what appears to be a new belt and pipe build mode. Those long and gentle curves are super smooth and are definitely not possible on belts, and I don't think they're possible on pipes, but you might be able to get something similar. I do think that is a much wider curve though, so that's going to be pretty awesome. There's also another item here that I can't quite identify, which is these boxes on the lifts. They kind of just look like they could be floor holes, but they're just kind of chilling there. I would assume that these are either specifically extenders for vertical lifts, or they're just floor holes being used as extenders. I don't know why they would show it off though, unless they needed to, so I'm a little suspicious of that. Now we're back in the storage room where we get to see the Pioneers dabbing. Awesome, very timely. Definitely it's not way too late to talk about dabbing, for sure. But we also get to see some other details of some of the items that we've seen featured already. You can see the item scanners on the belts in the background again, and you can see that there are definitely 100% placeable conveyor wall holes, this time vertically. We also get a much closer look at the elevator door, where we can see that the power for the elevator comes in via a plug on the door. So that's everything that I could see in this 1.1 trailer. If you saw anything that I didn't, or you have a different interpretation of any of my guesses, please do let me know in the comments. And with that, now we wait until we get a release date, because unfortunately this did not come with one. Speaking of which, I think it's been said in the past that console was supposed to come before 1.1, so maybe we're going to get both of those around the same time. I guess we'll see. We don't have a date for either. But anyways, if you liked this video and breakdown, give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the future for more Satisfactory news and Satisfactory guides.